without much ado, would like to move to the next panel. And I'd like to introduce the moderators for the next panel, so we continue to engage all the persons who have joined us from across the world. And the first person I'd like to introduce is Ejovi Aro. Please pardon me, I'm not moderating this name, but I've tried to practice it a few times. He's Group Managing Director, IPNX Nigeria Limited. Ejovi Aro is the Group Managing Director of IPNX Nigeria Limited. He also serves as the Chairman of Telnet Nigeria Limited, the Managing Director of Tech Invest Limited, and sits on the board of InterSuite Group, amongst others. Now, this is very exciting, and I'm already getting excited reading this just now. He is a highly versatile chief executive who has been at the forefront of supporting local and international technology trends for over 30 years, a distinguished business leader with demonstrable capacity to develop cutting-edge industry-defining blueprints while anticipating and driving business change. Ejovi's leadership has transformed IPNX from a fledgling telecommunications startup into a leading information and communications technology company that serves a multitude of needs across the residential, small business, and enterprise markets. Prior to assuming the role of a group managing director of IPNX in 2001, Ejovi served with Telnet Nigeria Limited, rising to become the managing director of Iteco Nigeria Limited, a subsidiary of Telnet Nigeria Limited, barely 8 years after he joined the organization as a first-class graduate of electrical electronics engineering from the Obafemi Awolowo University, the Great Ife. He is an alumnus of Brunel University, England, and prestigious Lagos Business School, where he obtained a master's degree in engineering communications and an executive MBA, respectively. Ejovi is passionate about national development and is renowned for his exemplary mentoring and leadership skills, with numerous high-performance proteges who have gone on to excel in different organizations and businesses around the world. So let's make welcome Ejovi. Ejovi, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So while you get your thoughts together and your notes, I'm sure you're ready with it. Permit me to also introduce Ayodele, who incidentally was clapping for you. And that reminds me, Ayodele, you're Yoruba. I'd like to give you a Yoruba proverb. You don't lose anything by bowing to greet another. I know you know that. Okay, so as I introduce you, and I love that smile, Ayodele A. Adeboye, Country Manager, Econet Wireless. Wow, awesome. Holds a first-class bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from University of Ibadan. That's my father's university also. My dad was in Kuti Hall. Daddy was in Kuti Hall several years ago, so I love UI. But Ayodele was there and left there in 1989, subsequently trained as a professional accountant with the erstwhile firm of accountants and consultants, Arthur Andersen, and is now a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICANN. Ayodele worked in Arthur Andersen from 1991 for 10 years in the firm's audit practice, small business consulting, and finally in the tax and business advisory services group. In 1991, he joined other young Nigerian entrepreneurs to start up one of Nigeria's GSM telecommunications networks, Econet Wireless Nigeria.
That was 2001, actually.
2001, excellent, beautiful. I'm just picking it up from the profile, please pardon me, but that's good. Okay, so Econet Wireless, and later known as V-Mobile. This is one company that has really changed names several times. You will have to explain that before you go far from here. Later known as V-Mobile Nigeria, and then Celtel Nigeria, as a shareholder, head of finance operations, head of procurement, logistics and warehousing, head of revenue assurance and fraud management, and finally, chief officer, billing and administration. What else didn't you do, Ayodele? But before you answer me, since late 2006, he has been consulting in the areas of accounting, finance, revenue assurance, and fraud management, business process improvement and billing, business structuring and acquisitions, with a leaning towards the telecommunications space in Nigeria and Southern Africa. Ayodele seeks to be involved in contributing positively to the development of society and has had the opportunity to serve, or is still serving, at high levels in the following not-for-profit organizations and associations. Now, because of time, I'm going to just leave both of you to just please take this. So Ayodele and my very good friend Ejovi, the table is yours.
Thank you very much, Obinaya. That's a very, very good introduction. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank AiMP for organizing this. I've been watching since the beginning, and it's been very exciting seeing so many people that are as passionate, or even more passionate than I am, about the development of Nigeria. I actually happen to be in one of the few people in the unique position to live in the US and work in Nigeria, and I've been doing that for 20 years, spending half my time in Nigeria and half my time in the US every year. So I've had a very good opportunity to see both sides of things, and I know very well that we cannot expect anybody else to develop Nigeria for us. We will have to do it ourselves, both Nigerians in Nigeria and Nigerians in diaspora. And I'm very excited about this platform that is what is being organized. I hope it will go a long way to helping us to advance that country forward. We have over 200 million people, and I believe that what I would call the leaders of society, I think we're all leaders here now, we have a responsibility to actually move that nation forward on behalf of everybody coming behind us. But I'd like to especially thank my friend Segun Lujobi, who invited me to moderate on this platform, on this panel. He knows about my passion for the development of Nigeria, and it's very exciting for me to be here today. I must say something. Our people, with due permission from Obinaya, who is the owner of all parables, would say you cannot cry more than the bereaved. To buttress the point that we ourselves have to move Nigeria forward. Of course, we will accept and should accept help from anybody that is ready to, any country or any foreigner that is ready to contribute. But we have to take responsibility. And we have to remember something. Who pays the piper dictates the tune. So a lot of the time you depend on help. It sometimes comes with conditions that might not be palatable to you. And like they say, when handshake reach elbow, you don't become wrestling. If you permit I'm from Delta State, so once a Delta, always a Delta. So we definitely will help ourselves and our future generations by doing what we can now to advance this country of ours. And technology actually plays a pivotal role in this, especially information technology, but also all other different areas of technology. And Nigerians in diaspora have had the opportunity to gain a lot of deep knowledge in this area, and therefore can contribute a lot, to the advancement of the country through the application of technology, And as this forum shows, you actually don't even have to be physically in Nigeria to contribute. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that more. So, excuse me, sorry. So I'd like to, end this segment by just commenting that it can be a win-win for everybody. We can actually get very, very involved in Nigeria, like a number of others have shown, Kofo, KT, and co, and actually contribute to development and also be financially rewarded. Like I said earlier, I don't even know whether to call myself a diasporan or a local, because I've been half and half, but I've never worked in the US. I live here, but I work in Nigeria, and for me, it has been successful so far, but I know we can do more. And together, I hope we will achieve a lot. I tell my friends that I'd rather die knowing I tried, even if I fail, than be on my deathbed and wish I had tried. So I hope we all have the same spirit, and we will do our best to see how we can contribute to the transformation of Nigeria. On that note, Acknowledging my very good friend, Ayo, my co-moderator, I'd like to invite the members of the panel so we can hear their views one by one. I'll introduce each person, and then the person will give us 5 minutes of their perspectives on how the role diasporans can play in national transformation for us. I'll start with Nnamdi Jidenwa, just a brief introduction. Nnamdi is a technologist focused on advancing the use of technology in uplifting people, businesses, communities, and nations around the world. She has spent most of her career in leadership roles at WhatsApp, Facebook, and PayPal, amongst others. She's an advocate for the development of dynamic tech ecosystems and is an independent director of CC Hub Investment Company. Nnamdi, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction.
Yes,
as you mentioned, I'm happy to say a few words if you'd like me to kick it off.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for the chance to be here, and thanks to my co-panelists as well as folks who are listening in. As he mentioned in the introduction, I'm very passionate about technology and have been privileged enough to have spent majority of my career in the sector. With my initial remarks, I really want to focus on my own personal experience as someone in the diaspora who's been fortunate enough to work at some of these companies, and who has seen firsthand the work that a lot of diasporans are doing behind the scenes to advance technology in Nigeria specifically. So I want to use 3 examples from my personal experience. One is from my personal experience at Google. Another is my personal experience at PayPal, and then also my personal experience working at Facebook and WhatsApp. So at Google over 10 years ago, there was a small but mighty and passionate group of people in the diaspora based in the headquarters who very early on saw the need to invest in a tech ecosystem in Nigeria. We've always had a tech ecosystem, but it was significantly behind some of the other tech ecosystems around the world, or even one that's more homegrown. So for example, the tech ecosystem in South Africa. And it was this passionate group of diasporans at Google within the headquarters who convinced Google to open up an office here and also to invest foundationally in various ways, whether it's funding early technology hubs like the Co-Creation Hub, or partnering with infrastructure providers such as Main One to offer Wi-Fi services to universities and various stakeholders around the country, or partnering with the government and various initiatives really dedicated to fostering a healthy ecosystem of entrepreneurs, developers, and eventually investors. And a lot of this work happened, like I said, 10 plus years ago, started at a very foundational phase. But what I find inspiring is fast forward to 2021, we can see the impact of all that work that happened behind the scenes. I believe a lot of that foundational work is the reason why, in 2021, we hear stories of multiple billion-dollar companies that have been started by very young people that has come out of this ecosystem. And so as someone who saw the early genesis of that work, it makes me have so much massive respect for diasporans around the world who advocate for Nigeria behind the scenes. A lot of them are actually not well known, but that's what it takes to actually move the needle and have impact decades later and generations later. And so I just wanted to use that as one example. Another example is at PayPal. So a lot of people in Nigeria not happy with PayPal because they're not offering their full suite of services. But as someone who worked there, I know there was a very passionate diaspora community that really lobbied the leadership to offer a lot of the functionality that we have today. It's not fully there yet, but it took them, many meetings with the leadership, a lot of, walking them through the reason why this is such a dynamic market and why it makes sense to invest in financial inclusion. And eventually they launched a partnership back in the day with First Bank And again, a lot of those diasporans, we don't know who they are, but it happened and I saw them do it and I was one of them. And so that's another story that I wanted to share. The last story I wanted to share is through my experience at Facebook. And I think folks who are in technology perhaps would remember this. So Mark Zuckerberg had never visited Africa. And a lot of diasporans, a lot of Nigerians in the diaspora who worked at Facebook thought it would be very symbolic to have someone as visible as him visit Nigeria specifically, visit young people, and have that kind of make a statement, not just in Nigeria, but globally, that we have significant companies, significant startups here. And so there was a lot of behind the scene lobbying that went into making that happen. And eventually he came here. And the reason why I use that as an example is we, after that, saw a domino effect. We saw the CEO of Google come here. We saw the CEO of Twitter come here. We've since then seen even more and more attention on our startup companies. And so I use that as a third example because, again, to my point about these passionate diasporan believers who are really doing it out of passion, not for recognition. I have time and time again seen the impact of that behind the scenes work in terms of elevating our young people, elevating companies in Nigeria, et cetera. And so I use that backdrop because that's my personal experience. And when I think about ways in which I am personally contributing to the continent, it's a lot of that behind the scenes work and advocacy. And so I use that as an example because I think it's a great narrative of the ways in which the diaspora are bridging and reaching out to companies and startups within Nigeria to elevate them. One is through that kind of advocacy work. Another is through the example that was given in the past panel just now, for example, directly investing in some of these companies. And we're seeing more and more organizations. The CC Hub is one, Future Africa Fund is another, that are really giving and empowering diasporans to angel invest. And there's so much energy, and I can't wait to see what it all pans out into over the next decade or over the next 20 years. So with that, I'll pause. I just wanted to focus on that because it really speaks to my experience, how I've been focusing on giving back and a tangible way that I know has worked in the past and will continue to work in the future.
Thank you, Machi, for your opening comments. I think one thing came to me very clearly as you were speaking, that the diasporans can engage in Nigeria at two different levels, at the individual or corporate level in what they're doing, or even getting large corporations, like you said, getting Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg to focus on Nigeria. You know, so what you're saying is, my question to you is, what's your message to other diasporans working in big corporations, you know, in terms of getting them to focus on the potential and the possibilities out of Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you for that. My message to them is that every little effort counts, because in a lot of the anecdotes that I've shared, when we first start to advocate, it doesn't seem like anything substantial will come out of it. And sometimes it could take many years. But my advice to them, to your question, would be like, no matter, you know, your level of influence in those organizations, if you firmly believe that any form of investment by those organizations would go a long way into making a difference here, then do that. You know, start in your own area of influence. And what I found is, like, no matter who starts it, other people see that, and that encourages them to have the courage to come together. And then over time, that's really what causes the dynamo. That's what causes the snowball effect that I mentioned. So my strong encouragement is anybody who is in a position of influence, or, you know, even in whatever role they're playing those organizations, speak up, do something. It's not always easy, but people notice it, and that's what really encourages others to come together, and eventually it does make a big difference. And I've seen it happen so many times, and it will continue to happen.
Thank you. Joey, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Machi. Thank you, Ayo. Okay, I'll introduce the next panelist, Mr. Aneto Okonkwo. Aneto is the co-founder and CEO of ChatDesk, an enterprise software and machine learning company in the consumer support industry. He worked at Google for 7+ years as a product manager. He has also worked at McKinsey and Company, Microsoft, and Goldman Sachs. He holds a BSc and an MA from Stanford University, where he was a Mayfield Fellow. Aneto, please go ahead.
Thank you for the introduction. My remarks, I wanted to focus on the opportunity. What's the opportunity for entrepreneurship that I see for diasporans in Nigeria? And then what's the challenge? What's the challenge to entrepreneurship in Nigeria for diasporans? So the opportunity that I've seen is building export-focused businesses. Businesses where the income is actually coming from outside Nigeria. The benefit of this approach, and I'm saying this for anyone who's thinking about starting a company in Nigeria, we have a business that's headquartered in New York, but has a large team in Nigeria. We employ around 70 people in Nigeria. And our approach was to build an export-focused business so that our income is coming from outside Nigeria. The benefit of this is you're protected from a lot of the externalities that happen in Nigeria that we all know about. When your customers are outside, you're bringing income into the country. So, okay, you agree with me, export-focused business, but what should you export? My argument is our biggest resource is our people, right? We have hundreds of millions of people, and we're going to have more and more than any other country in Africa, and more than most countries in the world. And we have so many young people, so many talented young people, so many unemployed, talented young people. And that's a huge opportunity to create income and bring wealth into the country. We've seen the success already. You take a company like Andela, which is a huge success story in the technology ecosystem, right? And that's the approach they've taken, is that they were exporting the talent of software engineers, high-skilled workers, right, to other countries. Right? And that has blossomed to create other companies. People have worked at Andela and gone on to other things. Our approach at ChatDesk was we are looking at the customer support industry. Places like India and Philippines have generated massive income for their country and for their industry in customer service. And I looked at it and said, why doesn't Nigeria have customer service as an export? We speak English. Our time zone is much better for the US and European markets than India and Philippines. This should be something we should be doing. And that's one of the reasons why we focused on customer service. And customer service is the type of thing that can employ anyone who's literate as long as you have internet. So it's a technology-enabled business. So I'd encourage you, when you're thinking about the type of business you want to start as a diaspora person, look at the thing you are knowledgeable in. Maybe you're a lawyer. Maybe you know marketing. Maybe you know some other digital service. But all those things can be provided over the internet today. And you can utilize the latent people and talent that we have in Nigeria to develop that kind of business. I think it's a huge opportunity, and we are doing it in customer service, but there's so many other industries where you can build those types of businesses, just as Andela has done with software engineering. So that's the opportunity. Okay.
Sorry, go on, please go on.
Okay, that's the opportunity. Okay, now let's talk about the challenge. The challenge is the brain drain, right? You have probably seen it. We saw it decades ago in the healthcare space. Many Nigerian doctors went to the Middle East or other places, right? And now we're seeing in technology. There's a constant stream of people going to Canada, going to Germany, and you can't blame them given the situation in the country. And you can't blame them given that I myself, was trained abroad, and people want to have a better life for themselves and better life for their family. So you can't stop people from leaving, but it's going to be a challenge that anyone you hire, and especially the really good people, there's a constant pull, for them to leave the country, and you have to figure out how you're going to solve that. One way to solve that is just always be hiring and just realize that you just have to keep training more and more people. Another way is to instill in those people, yes, you're going to leave, but you want to come back. You want to come back and make Nigeria better. All the places in the world that have now, really gone forward, they didn't start that place. If you look at somewhere like China in the 1980s, it was really a mess. If you look at somewhere like the Middle East, in the 1970s, it was a mess. And some places in the Middle East are still a mess. And you're able to turn it around if you bring in the resources and you bring in the talent that we all have in the diaspora. So instilling in them. There's some things we do on a micro level. We actually have engineers in the diaspora mentor our software engineers. So we have people who work at Google and other companies around the world who actually mentor our software engineers in our team so that they are feeling like they're learning the things that they can learn in the diaspora when they leave while they're still with us. And so if there's someone who wants to get involved, even on micro level, and do like a weekly call with someone on our team, we welcome that. We actually pay the mentors. So that's a micro way to get involved if you just want to dip your toe and understand the scene. So that's my advice to people who are thinking about entrepreneurship. We've been able to do it, but that's because of this massive opportunity, but also we're facing this challenge.
Thank you very much, Neto. I have a question for you. The export of people's talents, if I should put it that way, there's another word for it, but this was pioneered by India, the Philippines years back, and I know it's probably been a very competitive environment for you to break into that from the Nigerian perspective. Can you give us some insight into how you've managed to succeed in spite of the challenges from the other well-established countries that have done this also?
So I think your question is asking, it seems that exporting services would be challenging given that there's so much competition. Is that your question?
I'm asking actually, how have you found it? Because considering, in my view, that it's something that has been well established in some other countries like India.
Yeah, I think customers in any industry, they want the best service at the best price, right? And it turns out that Nigerians are brilliant, So when I say that we have, a great resource, I really mean it. There's so many amazing people. There's some world-class people in our team. The reason why they got hired in Germany is because they're actually good, So we don't have to feel ashamed or feel that we can't compete. We can do better than India, and we can do better than Philippines. It's actually our own selves holding us back, right? That's why Nigerians in the diaspora are excelling. They're excelling in entertainment, they're excelling in sports, they're excelling in politics. You go to London, you'll see Nigerians in the parliament, right? Because Nigerians are the best. So we should be in the top. We should be getting all the deals and winning all the clients. It's actually a given, right? So that's my retort is actually, it's pretty straightforward. If you just do what Nigerians do, which is excel, then of course you win contracts and you win deals. There's nothing holding us back there.
That's exactly what I was going to bring out, the fact that we can compete.
Yeah.
We can.
Yeah, and I just said we have a better time zone, right?
Okay.
Which makes a huge difference when you're working. If you're a lawyer, you're trying to work with a lawyer in a US or UK, of course, the time zone is going to make a difference. We're on the same time zone with the UK. India is not on the same time zone. Philippines is not on the same time zone. That immediately puts us a huge advantage. And then cost-wise, those places have actually gotten expensive. So, it's just shameful to say the minimum wage in Nigeria is 30,000 naira, 35,000 naira. So if you pay someone 100,000 naira, 200,000 naira, 500,000 naira, they're happy, right? They still want more, but they're happy. And that is going to feed them someone's family. So we actually are cheaper and we're better. So of course, we're going to win the contracts.
So we are very competitively positioned.
Yes, and just one additional question for Neto, or let me say something I'd like you to highlight. I heard you say technology and the internet now makes it possible for people in Nigeria to compete and provide services internationally. I'd like you to just highlight that a bit more.
Yeah, certainly. I think university graduates, most of them have laptops. They're all very internet savvy, tech savvy, and the internet connections have really improved given the investments like Amachi was saying. Main One, all the things that were done 10 years ago are now paying off. We have good internet. The fact that we're having this call, right? In our office in Enugu, right? We have an office in Enugu. We have high-speed internet, right? And our team is able to use that. So if you make the right investments, that's some of the things, the kind of the infrastructure you have to do in Nigeria. You have to do it yourself. If you make the right investments, you can enable your team to be able to, and your employees to be able to serve companies all over the world. So those are some of the investments you have to make sure everyone has a good laptop and good internet. But actually the reality is all our university graduates are very tech savvy and have those things.
Talking about internet, it's interesting that Ejovi is here. He's one of the companies providing last mile solutions for fiber connection. So it just highlights that. So Ejovi, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ayo. Thank you, Aneto. Well said. I'd like to move on to another of our distinguished panelists, Dr. Unoma Okoroafor. She's the founder and CEO of WAAW Foundation. That means working to advance STEM education for African women. Her work experience spans several big technology companies, including Texas Instruments, Intel, Hewlett-Packard, HP, and IBM. She's also a visiting professor at the African University of Science and Technology in Abuja, where she teaches in the computer science department. Welcome, Norma.
Thank you so much for having me. Just wanted to say thank you to the AiMP network and to my fellow panelists. What a great opportunity, and I'm very privileged to be here. So thank you for having me on. I wanted to come at this, my comments, just to highlight the opportunities I see in something that sort of dovetails into what Aneto was talking about, which is building this pipeline of highly qualified talent that can be exported. So I've been privileged to sort of straddle several industries. As an African woman in technology, my background is computer science. Right after I graduated from my PhD, I had the opportunity to connect with the African University of Science and Technology in Abuja. That they're doing a phenomenal job trying to build a pipeline of students who have masters and PhDs in these technology fields. So I've worked a little bit in the academic space, but also for over 14 years, we've been doing the work with the WOW Foundation, WAAW. And for me, I have come to understand that we need to build a pipeline that ultimately will empower the young people that we have. This is our greatest resource. How do we empower the young people we have to connect with global opportunities and be able to attract value so that they're sitting somewhere in a village and they're making and they're earning income that can empower them economically and feed their families? And in particular, there are future opportunities I see. Our organization particularly focuses on bringing more women into this space. I know it's a challenge worldwide, getting more women into the STEM space, but I think that women bring a unique perspective to the discussion and to creating real world solutions that will solve some of the challenges, not just right here in Nigeria, but across Africa and across the globe. So that particular challenge is one of the things that opportunities is one of the things that I really want to focus on. The other one is the entire just ecosystem, the pipeline of education, because I think that education is the bedrock of everything that we're talking about. Is the bedrock of us really equipping this huge talent pool we have. And for me, it starts with, even as young as secondary school, trying to build that pipeline of people who start to think creatively, addressing the challenge we have in our educational system that is mostly rote memorization, and starting to inculcate innovation, innovative thinking, creative thinking, project-based thinking, teamwork in our entire educational system, and ensuring that that then funnels into this talent pool that we're trying to build, and equipping them with technology as a tool to solve problems. But even beyond technology, some of the things that we found is that we have to even have conversations around other soft skills. We've seen people who are very tech savvy, but who can put their resumes together, or who cannot do a presentation, or who are still writing in short code. And just being able to look at the entire ecosystem and say, what do we need to do to equip our young people to play in the global sea? So that's kind of the area where that's the opportunity that I see. There are several challenges in this space, and I hope I'll have the opportunity to talk about that. But really, I think that focusing in on building this pipeline of highly qualified, highly educated young people, like really all the panelists have said, we have extremely intelligent, smart folks who are hungry, who are energetic, who are ready to learn, and technology can breach that So that's kind of that is the area I kind of want to focus in on.
Thank you.
Okay, let me ask a question that comes to my mind. You know, one of the refreshing things for me was listening to Aneto talk about the fact that Nigeria is not a charity case, that there's money to be made. Okay, now you're talking about human capital development. Okay, and I would like you to look at the sustainability of it, not presenting it as a charity case and, oh, we really want to help these people, you know, but as in terms of opportunities where if you make the investment, it'll pay back, and how that is possible within your space.
That's such a great question, and something that we have learned over the years. It was that 14 years ago when we started this work, when we'll sit around nonprofits working in Africa. I used to be the only African in the room, and there was a bunch of other nationals who had maybe visited Africa for 2 weeks 5 years ago, who are talking about running nonprofit organizations in Africa. And now things are changing a lot. A lot more Africans are engaging in this space because we understand that Africa, first of all, we are the ones who own the challenges. We understand how this society works, so we have to get involved in this space. But in addition to what localizing the content of what we are delivering, we have to start thinking about the sustainability. One of the programs that we run at the WOW Foundation is called the She Hacks Africa, and it's building talents that will plug into pools or companies like Aneto's and other organizations. Last week, we had 2 companies out of New York reach out to us and say, I need a software developer in Dart, or I need a software developer in front end. So companies in the West are starting to look to Africa, and in particular Nigeria, for talent. How we build that talent. And I know that there's brain drain, but I would say 98% of our young people don't have the opportunity to leave. How do we make it that they don't even want to leave? That they can make money here. And so one of the opportunities for nonprofits is tying what we're doing to market value and being able to sell that market value. And I'll give you an example. We train a young person, we invest 6 months and make sure that they are top quality. They are coming in as a junior engineer, as a lower level, mid-level engineer. And we plug them into an internship or in a job where we're collecting hiring fees or fees for bringing them online, or there's a payback model where we've paid their school fees for 6 months, and because they've got a job, they now can pay back the loan that we have loaned them, plus the investment that we've made on them. So there's a value. And sometimes when we talk about nonprofit, people think that we can't capture value, but there is, in fact, that's one of the things I challenge nonprofits to do, to start thinking about how to be sustainable so that they can bring value to the marketplace that the marketplace is willing to pay for. But having said that, because we're a nonprofit, we want to cast the net wide. So we don't want it to be like a private school where it's 1% of the population that can attend it. We want to look at models that will allow just anybody to come in, engage, get trained on the front end, and then plug them in with opportunities where they can then pay back whatever the cost of this training was. And there are many ways to do that. I can give another example with our teacher training program, but I want to keep it short. But in addition to that, part of what we are doing, I am an entrepreneur myself. I'm running 2 companies in the US. And I can tell you that half of my staff is sitting right here in Abuja or in Lagos. Whether it's their marketing or the customer service, those are things that we can start bringing in people here in Nigeria to learn and to understand, and mentor and coaching them to understand how to do business in the global economy.
Thank you very much. Ejovi.
Yeah, thank you, Norma. Thank you for your good work. I'm a firm believer in the principle that a child born anywhere in the world, whether in Ajegunle or in New York, there's no difference between them in terms of potential. It's what happens to them after they're born that makes a difference in what they achieve in life. You know, so they are your focus on development, capacity building is critical, and I hope it is something like the education team said earlier. You know, something that we really get our act together on, because our biggest potential is our people. You know, and Neto referred to that too. And I actually believe that Nigerians, I just stop at the border to say we are the most brilliant in the world, but there's nobody better than us. At least that one I will argue with anybody. Whether they're better than everybody else, okay, that's another barrier, but I don't agree that there's anybody with more potential than us. People just have opportunities our people haven't gotten. And hopefully with work from people like you, we'll be able to bridge that gap very quickly. So quickly, I'd like to move to, thank you very much, Unoma. I'd like to move to our last but not the least distinguished guest, distinguished panelist, my minister, Omobola Johnson, Mrs. Omobola Johnson. Short introduction, Omobola is the pioneer Minister of Communication Technology, Minister of Communication Technology Ministry in Nigeria. She had a long career in Accenture, formerly Anderson Consulting, including 5 years as the country managing director. She's a senior partner at TLCom Partners LLC, a venture capital firm, and serves on the boards of several organizations, including Guinness Nigeria Limited, MTN, and Custodian and Allied Insurance, to name a few. I should stop there because I don't want us to be here till 10 o'clock in the night. So I won't name the rest. Well, thank you very much. You're welcome. Please, can you give us a few words of wisdom on this?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ajobi, and good evening, everybody. These have been fantastic comments. You know, the thing about coming last is that I can just say I concur and I can finish my comments, you know, but some really good suggestions. I wanted to premise my comments on really what I do now, which is venture capital investment, and speak a little bit about TLCom, because that's important for what I'm going to say about the role of the diaspora in nation building. You know, TLCom is a 20-year-old VC firm. We started 1990 during the dot-com boom, basically investing in startups in Europe and Israel. And the pivot to Africa really happened in about 2013 or so, when the company that TLCom invested in 2 European companies with an Africa focus, and they exited very successfully. And so Maurizio Cao, who is the managing partner and the founder, said, well, something must be happening in Africa and we need to find out about it. And they started coming to Africa in about 2014, 2015. I joined in 2015. The theme of TLCom since I joined, was basically around investing in companies that are solving grand challenges in Africa, whether it is in education, in health, in commerce. I mean, all of us, most of us on this platform are Africans. There are many, many grand challenges. And we look at solving challenges around people that have, you know, underserved or unserved people in education, in health, and whatever. We look at what we call broken verticals. These are really, you know, value chains that are broken in agriculture, in automotives, in logistics. So there's so many problems or challenges, let me put it in a more opportunities that can be solved with technology that haven't really been solved before, but we can solve with technology. So we've been investing since 2017. We're raising our second fund now. And we've invested in 11 companies in Nigeria and also in Kenya. And our second fund will include companies in Egypt. Now, the point I wanted to make around what can the diasporas do, especially when you talk about BC. First of all, this is an industry, and I think Machi sort of alluded to it, it's growing very, very fast. In 2015, $200 million of venture capital money came into Africa. In 2019, $2 billion of venture capital came into Africa. A little bit of a glitch in 2020, but really more or less flat in 2020, and 2021, we're seeing it going on a trajectory. Now, I don't think there's any industry that is growing as fast as this. And the good thing about this is that most of this money is actually coming to Nigeria. So out of that $2 billion in 2019, over 700 million of it came to Nigeria. And that is significant. This is almost $1 billion is coming in, not through banks, not through development institutions, but through venture capital, looking for the upside in technology in Africa. And that's very, very significant. Now, when it comes to, you know, what can the diaspora do? How can the diaspora support us? Quite a lot of it has been spoken about today. But the first thing I want to talk about is founders. So the lifeblood of venture capital is around companies or individuals that are actually starting companies. And so we've seen, again, in our portfolio and otherwise, we've seen founders of different kinds. There are people like Aneto who are in the diaspora, work in the diaspora, but found companies, successful companies in Nigeria, and that's great. There are other sorts of founders who decide that, you know what, I've seen an opportunity here because I live in a more developed market, but I think this opportunity or this particular product will actually work very well in Africa. And there's one founder in our portfolio, Farah Jitubo, who is building, as far as she's concerned, the Plaid of Africa. The Plaid is basically one of these fintech APIs that is valued at $7 billion. Now, Farah used to be a software engineer at Mercedes-Benz. She came back home a couple of years ago. We invested in her seed round. She's just raised another $3.5 million. For those of you that follow the industry, it was announced today. And she's got some big Silicon Valley firms backing her. But this is somebody who saw something in the US and said, I can build this in Africa, and has come and is building it. And there's a big need for integration into banks and helping banks to be more innovative and more relevant to the customers that they serve. That's one thing. So a founder deal, not to say that there are no founders in Nigeria. There are many founders in Nigeria and great ones at that. But this is one thing that diasporas can do, either be in the deal flow for African focused companies, either working here or actually doing it in the diaspora. Now, the second thing is capital. And I know that it was mentioned earlier on where, I can't remember, it was one of the speakers in the last panel that talked about how they had Nigerians in Silicon Valley had raised a fund and been early investors. I think it was Paystack, and that's great, because again, many of you that are in the diaspora, you are wealthy, you've got disposable income, and really what it does when you invest in these companies, or either invest in the companies or invest in funds, and again, that's part of the trust game. When you're investing in a fund, there's a trust. These are funds that are properly registered. You can see the credibility of the people. They're funds that have a lot of the DFIs and national governments investing in them. So that trust and that transparency is there. So investing in these funds gives you, the kind of visibility that you need across Africa. I listened in to the education panel when Professor Lukwana was speaking and talked about how sometimes the diaspora really don't know that much about what's happening in Africa. It's what you hear on the news, and that is also that's always colored by different contexts. And so investing through a VC fund into companies actually gives you greater visibility on what is actually happening across the continent and in Nigeria in particular. So that's one thing that we could do. Now, the third thing, very important, and speaking to Unoma's point, is around talent. And that is so important because we are doing this for the first time in Africa. VC is still a 5-7 year game in Nigeria. It's a 40-50 year game in other parts of the world. So we're just about building the talents, and Unoma, well done for all the work that you're doing. And Aneto is also doing that, in terms of just recruiting people and training them and making them world class. But we need talent that is already experienced to work, whether in Nigeria or outside Nigeria, remote, distributor, whatever. There's so many ways that we can work today, but that talent is so critical because, one of the things that we see when we invest in companies, the first thing they do is to bring in talent from out of the country or pay a company in India or wherever it is to do some of the programming or development for them. So I think one of the ways in which the diaspora can help us is to really leverage the skills and the experience that they have to work with these, not always working for, but working with these companies, either as mentors, advisors, sitting on their boards. I mean, this is really very important as these companies grow and scale. And the last thing is around networks. I was very excited. I can see there's a chat going on. Somebody just sent Aneto saying that she's working in the Valley. I saw, there's so many Nigerians in Silicon Valley. And we need, the value chain of VC is really not limited to the continent. You can find the companies, you can find the founders, you can put the money in the continent. But when you want to exit, a lot of that, the bankers, the exit opportunities, whether it's Facebook or Google or whoever's going to buy it, that value chain doesn't sit in Nigeria or in Africa. It sits somewhere else, in Europe and the US. So really, those networks are critical for us to understand where are the exit opportunities for these companies. There are people that are working, Nigerians that are working in Mercedes-Benz. Forget about the tech companies. I know there's so many Nigerians in Facebook, Google, Apple. Is just incredible. But even beyond that, in the Mercedes-Benzes, in the Peugeots, in the big logistics and hauling companies, there are Nigerians there. And I think we need that network to be able to think what are the best exit opportunities for these for these companies. So for me, that's where the diaspora can work. It's those three areas. It's around found a deal flow, either doing it from the US or Europe or wherever, or coming here to leverage your experience and the opportunities that you see abroad. It's about capital, bringing in that capital, either through forming your own consortiums or investing through VC firms. And very importantly, the talents and the networks. I would actually re-emphasize the talent and the networks that Nigerians that are working outside of Nigeria can really bring to play. And I think my final point is, the beauty about this, which you've learned in the last, if there's one thing the pandemic has done for us, is to let us know without any doubt that we can build this country by not constantly, worrying about brain drain or begging the diasporans to come back. We can do it with them working over there. And I think that's a very, very significant difference in what was happening in the past. Technology has shown us that remote workforces, distributed workforces can be just as productive as those that actually work in country. And so this is an opportunity for us to use technology to engage the diaspora more and to get them much more involved, much more actively involved, either through direct participation or indirect or advisory, or whatever it is, to really support this, what I think is probably the fastest growing industry in this country today, and the one that is solving the biggest problems that we have in education, in finance, in health. It is solving those problems in a very significant way. So let me just stop there, Joey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mabala. Very fantastic point. I like the comments, especially on the fact that people can actually have avenues to invest, but those who just want to invest, which are very credible. They can use for credible venture capitalists like TLC and TLCom, and sleep well at night. Rather than worry about whether the people they are dealing with are credible or not, or giving it to your brother to go and build a house, and you come back and you see that the thing is still a bush. But that's I'll be sending you pictures, But I'd like to ask you a question, please. A lot of the things people might want to do, will not be impactful without the involvement of government. Especially if you want to have an impact in healthcare and education. It's a bit difficult to actually do that without involving government. Now, with your experience having worked in government for a few years earlier, can you give any insight as to the best way that people in diaspora can engage, where they actually need government intervention in order to make a difference?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great question. And yes, I was once a policymaker. And, for me, it's just two words. It's engagement and collaboration. And what do I mean by that? It's very easy to sit and criticize regulators and government. But sometimes you need to sit in their shoes. I'm not saying they're always right, please don't get me wrong. Sometimes you need to sit in their shoes and understand the role that they're playing in development as well. It's about creating a level playing field. It's about making sure that people can succeed on companies that can succeed on fair terms. Not always done in the best way, but that's really what the objective of the regulator is. And so the point I always make is that you need to engage with the regulator or government and understand what they're doing. Reading those policy papers that come out, those national plans. I know that we worked very hard on a broadband policy. We worked very hard on an ICT plan. I don't know how many people actually read that plan, because when you read those plans, you understand the direction of government and what they're trying to do. Many things go to our National Assembly, the papers and the laws and all of that. They have all these different, I forget the term they have for them now, where you discuss a paper before it actually becomes law. I can't remember the name, but basically these things are happening all the time. And the beauty about it is that some of them are happening online. Some of those papers are posted on platforms. We need to engage and see the way that government is thinking and develop your companies around that regulation, because you're going to get stopped. So if you're not doing the right thing, or if you're not doing the right way. We have many examples. I see what's happening in the fintech and the fintech space. It is not good. I mean, that is not good. The way the regulator is sort of constraining or stifling the innovation that's happening in fintech. But some fintechs have they started doing things without even thinking that they needed a license. And that's the way young people think. Until the CBN said, excuse me, you need a license to collect money from people. You can't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm doing crowdfunding. But if you engage with government, if you understood regulation, then we can begin to make some headway. Regulators need to learn from innovators. Innovators need to learn from regulators. And the only way that can happen is honestly that engagement and collaboration. I know in my time, because I was coming from the private sector, it was very easy for me to engage. And I would have these stakeholder workshops. I'd come to Lagos, talk to the telcos, talk to the IT companies, and understand what their pain points were and try and resolve those pain points. Now, that doesn't always happen because you don't always have a minister or policymaker that is steeped in the private sector. So when we don't, we have to make that extra effort to make sure that we understand what they're doing and the direction they're taking. So it was a very long answer, but it's an area that I'm very passionate about.
Thank you very much. I think you addressed it very well, very, very well. AiMP, please.
Well, Mobileye, a few points that I would like you to highlight. You did mention the fact that people don't have to come to Nigeria and take all the risks that are attendant, security, kidnapping, terrorism, and all those things that we watch on television. But technology and the internet specifically now allows engagement. So I'd like you to highlight that and the opportunities to work with formal rather than informal, because it's not about, you talked about funds which currently exist where people can engage formal corporates. There are too many stories of, I gave my brother money to invest for me and he ran away with it. As if Nigeria is some jungle and we don't have good corporates. I think I'd like you to talk a bit more about the environment for investors, whether small investors or big investors.
Yeah. Thanks, Ayo. Look, we have when we raised our fund in 2017, we were the first VC fund that was wholly focused on Africa. The first of any decent size. We could invest from $500,000 to $10 million. In the last 5 years, I would say that in Nigeria alone, we probably have, I don't have the exact number, we probably have about 20 funds that are focused on Nigeria or on Africa. And these funds range from those that will write a $10,000 check to those that will write like us, that will be able to write a $10 million check. And depending on how much extra wealth you have to put in, there are many options. I can mention, I'm sure Kola might be mentioning your ventures platform. We've mentioned Future Africa. We've mentioned Venture Gardens. There are quite a few of them that are doing smaller checks, the seed investments to really just test out products, test out founders, and then we then come in as a first institutional founder. So many of these opportunities abound. I mean, I think if you just Google VC funds in Nigeria, you'll come up with a decent list. But one thing I wanted to say, though, I did make the point that founders, that different kind of founders, those that and with due respect to you, Annette, you're doing great work. Those that choose to live abroad and do work here, and those that choose to come in. At TLCom, I'll be honest with you, we like to invest in founders who actually come and live and work in the country. Because sometimes you need to feel these things, that you need to be on top of the regulator, on top of innovation, on top of what the competition is doing. And sometimes it's difficult to do that from abroad. And I know, one of the companies that we didn't invest in, we had a long engagement with them, was Minds.io, who incidentally I met when I was minister. We went to Stanford to sort of preach to Nigeria, the tech opportunities and everything. And while I was there, Ekechi, who was a PhD student, Professor Lukoto, who was a prof in Stanford, they decided that they were going to take the bold step and start this company, which was Nigeria focused, but they would do it from Silicon Valley. After a few months, I think Ekechi decided that, what, enough is enough. I need to come back home, move my family here, and he came back. So the point is that, yes, we can do it. There are different models to do it, but I think that, it's important when you're a founder, and you need to get really, really involved. If you want your company to scale and to grow, you need to get involved. You need to get involved with regulators, know who the regulators are, know who the competition is, know who the banks are, just really understand the environment, despite all the issues we have around security and whatever. So I just wanted to make that point so that we don't go away thinking, I can sit in wherever and do a company in Nigeria. It's hard work. I'm sure you say it is really hard work to try and do this with 70 people in Nigeria and you've been somewhere else. It's hard work. And I'm sure you have somebody looking after.
But the flip side of that, Mobileye, is also the opportunities for collaboration.
Absolutely.
For Nigerians who are on top of their game, can then engage and collaborate with diasporans.
Exactly. Which is, I think, what, yes, we've seen that happen with many companies that we're invested in, yes.
I think it's a good time for Aneto to respond, because you've been directing a lot of your comments to him. So Aneto.
I love what he's doing, that's why.
Take it away.
Sure. I think Omobola's comment is exactly right. It's very tough to build a business in Nigeria if you're not on ground. I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have a co-founder, a close collaborator who's with the team on the ground and who is training those folks and managing the operation. I had the benefit of actually one of my best friends who I went to Federal Government College, Enugu with. He actually manages the office there. I think anyone who is starting a business in Nigeria, you need to be on the ground or have someone you really trust managing the operations day to day. You can't sit wherever you are and expect things to run the way you expect without having that either someone you trust or being there. So I think she's exactly correct. In my case, I think it's also an answer to the question that was asked of me of how do you get these export-focused deals? Well, someone needs to see those customers in person. Pre-pandemic, right? That is still very important if you're doing any kind of B2B selling, right? Andela, the example I gave, has an office in New York, has salespeople who are probably mostly not Nigerians talking to these customers. And so you need that complement as well. Either someone who is doing that selling, who can relate to the customers, or you yourself, which is my case, doing the selling to these customers. And that's part of why I need to be in New York. That's why I chose New York, because New York has so many businesses. So I would love to be in Nigeria. I miss, my family and food, and despite all the challenges in Nigeria, I would rather be in Nigeria. It's not by choice that I'm abroad. It's actually because that's the way to make the business work, my particular business.
Can I jump in right here and say something around sort of straddling and being the bridge between sort of the Western world and our community? And I think exactly what Aneto said is very relevant. Some of us who are in the diaspora, we are the face and the voice of Africa. We are the face and the voice of Nigeria. And as diasporans, as people in diaspora, I think that one of the greatest things we need to do is to change the narrative across how we're perceived, right? We've lived in both cultures, we can speak both languages, but we need to present Nigeria in a very positive light and let them know the opportunities, because the media is telling a different story. And I always like to say, Nigerians are not looking for aid. We want to trade, and we have value to bring to the table. And so being able to present ourselves in this positive light in the diaspora, making these connections with these tech companies or other companies who are looking for talent, and asking them to look directly to Nigeria, but also finding innovation centers, hubs, where these companies can come in and test out ideas. And that's one of the things we do at our foundation. We'll give you the opportunity, come and do a 3-month sort of work to test out your idea, from design to MVP, the minimum viable product. Come and work with a team of young engineers. Now, the thing that we do need is mentoring, coaching and mentoring. One of the things I can tell you is that there has to be a transfer of knowledge, and it's a lot of hard work, but we need to sit down with young people and say, that's not how to write code. You may understand how it is from a textbook, but in real life, this is how it works. Or even just project management tools, but being able to transfer the knowledge. One of the things we did very early in WOW Foundation, I came 3 times with a team from Africa. I actually met a professor out of Stanford, and she, with her team, she had been running STEM camps in the US and agreed to come to run the very first camp with us. And I told her, look, Kate, we're gonna do this only 3 times. You guys are coming here only 3 times. Every time there has to be a transfer of knowledge, so that by the end of the 3rd time, you don't need to come back. Everything you do know, you need to dump it into the heads of our facilitators, so that people we're training and facilitating people, and we're demanding that high level of excellence that we will demand anywhere. So that's one of the key things. But also, even as people in diaspora, when we come, even for vacation, one of the very early things, like I said, when we got involved in AUST, and Omobola, you mentioned Professor Lukotu, we volunteered at the African University of Science and Technology to teach a computer science course for 3 weeks. That 3 weeks changed my life. Here I was as a student who had just barely graduated, sitting with a professor from Stanford or with Professor Shogwejo from Princeton. And together we were collaborating and talking about high-level ideas. And I thought, oh my gosh, but Nigeria gives that kind of opportunity that you would not see in the diaspora. I mean, never in a million life. I mean, there's so many great people doing great things in the US, but in Nigeria, there are pockets of opportunity where you can actually really connect with people and make a real impact, but transfer the knowledge so that almost like you make yourself obsolete. Knowledge transfer. So even when we come on vacation, we should find ways to plug into some opportunity where we can mentor or train or teach or give a webinar, something that will make sure that we're pouring into our young people.
No, I see your passion. You're really passionate about human capital development. Mobola, would you like to make a comment to respond to her impassionate appeal, as it were?
No, I think she's absolutely correct. I mean, the only thing I would say is, Aneta has made a lot of, he's spoken about Andela. Actually, Andela is one of our portfolio companies. I sit on the board of Andela. And the byline of Andela is brilliance is evenly distributed, opportunity is not. And that just sums it all up. It just sums it all up. So it's really about opportunity and finding opportunities for these very brilliant Nigerians, either through work or through innovation or through starting companies. I think that is what we have to do, both the diasporans and the people that live in Nigeria. It's just understand, and we've all said it, we're all smart, we're all brilliant, but we just don't have the opportunities. But those opportunities are not going to fall into our lap. We've got to create them. That's the challenge for Nigeria. We have to create these opportunities and make sure that we're well positioned to take advantage of them when we do create them.
Thank you very much. Machi,
yeah,
can you talk to us about big tech in Nigeria? You talked about Google starting an office in Nigeria, Twitter is in Ghana. What's the impact on culture and just the upskilling? Because that is a sort of a knowledge transfer, just being able to work with those high tech and big corporates.
Thanks for the question. And I'd love to tie it into, what a lot of folks on the panel have talked about around talent networks and knowledge transfer, but I'll start first by answering your question. So I think the upskilling portion is incredibly important. What I've personally seen as someone who's worked at these organizations is that when they come in here, they actually serve as a source of inspiration in terms of the culture and the ways in which our own homegrown companies end up shaping how they develop their own organizations. So, I remember, way back when, 10 plus years ago, as I shared earlier, when it wasn't novel to have these companies on the ground. What I found though was, as some other startups and back in the day, folks like Jobberman, a number of folks who ended up doing good work, as they started to break out and hire more people, you could see that they were taking in best practices from Silicon Valley, from other tech hubs, and then infusing obviously the Nigerian flavor to use that to amplify how they build companies locally in Nigeria. So that's why I think ultimately, it's great for us to build our own companies, but it's also great for us to take the good that's elsewhere. And the way in which those companies export those values is when they set up shop here, when they hire people locally, and when those people go on to build their own companies. There's a point, I think, everyone seems very passionate about the point around around knowledge transfer and talent networks. I'm also very passionate about that point. I know we have a lot of diasporans listening in here. And so I wanted to put out a call for a startup. I think it'll be amazing if someone could start a company that basically serves as a network map of all the diasporans around the world, based on expertise, based on years of experience, and based on the areas that they're passionate about, and then provides them a platform with which to connect with people in Nigeria who are looking for mentoring. So I think, Anita mentioned earlier on that he provides that opportunity through his startup, but I think there is a massive opportunity for somebody to do that at scale. It really resonated with me when Mobola was talking about the work they're doing at TLCom and the need to have people with this expertise, either in global companies or just based on their experience, giving back, serving on boards, providing mentoring. I think it's so important. So I recently transitioned to venture capital. And one of the things that I very quickly found is in places like Silicon Valley and other tech ecosystems that are more advanced than ours, they actually don't have a funding problem. So in our case, TLCom was an innovator. They were one of the first venture firms who focused on Africa. And now, like I mentioned, there's a snowball effect because they've probably inspired others to do the same. But what I found is that in the most advanced tech ecosystems, the value is actually not the capital. The value is everything everyone who's talked about here. So when you partner with a venture firm, what is the company building expertise that the various partners are bringing to bear? How can they help you with go-to-market? How can they help you with scaling engineering or scaling product management? And we already have that in quantum in the diaspora. So what we can basically do is to leapfrog, right? A lot of these tech ecosystems initially focused on capital, on giving capital to startups. And now they're finding out that they need to over-rotate on the company building side. What we can do as we build our ecosystem around sending capital, investing in these companies, if we can also have a global scalable platform that can connect these talented individuals in diaspora spread across the US, Europe, all over the world with folks who are building these companies, or even folks who are working at companies in Nigeria who are looking for mentors who have maybe many more years of experience than them. I think that could be really, really a powerful way for diasporans to give back and to contribute in a tangible way to folks in Nigeria.
Very good. Thank you very much. Mobala, I'm going to give you the last say. So please take it away.
So much. Thank you, because I wanted to just leverage on something that Machi just said around, we have, when somebody asked me, we have a Google spreadsheet that we started, and it was because a lot of founders just didn't know where to go to find capital. It's better now. And we started a Google spreadsheet, and it's gone all over the world. And all it said was that if you're a VC firm that is focused on Africa, your name, your email address, what kind of companies you focus on, and how much you invest, and your contact details. Now, this is something that AiMP can actually take away. And just speaking to Machi's point around getting, she's talking about a company, a startup. But let's start with a Google spreadsheet that is hosted in AiMP that basically says for those people that are on this call today, just send out that Google spreadsheet, put in your name, where you work, your contact details, and how you could help tech startups in Nigeria, or any talent, or any sort of talent in Nigeria. And that's a very good way to start. I just, what Machi said was so important. And it goes viral. Our spreadsheet has gone viral. You can look it up on our website. They're probably, I don't know, a couple of hundred entries now. And I think something like this could really go viral. And we start that process of building a network of interested, engaged diasporans who want to collaborate and work with us in Nigeria to build this tech industry, tech ecosystem. Thank you.
So thank you very much to our distinguished panel. Just before I let you go, I'd like to just mention that we've set up Diaspora at AiMPnetwork.org for anyone who has inquiries, just to ask for information or to give that information that Mobala talked about, to set up the Google spreadsheet. But thank you very much to Mobala, Aneto, Machi, and Noma, and our distinguished moderator, Ejovi Aro. I'm sure that there are so many other questions, but we've run out of time. I want to say thank you to all of you, and thank you to our audience. God bless you all, and have a great evening.